Welcome back to the Money Bros YouTube channel. Today we are talking about Dave Ramsey's worst financial advice. Now I have to start this by saying I am a big Dave fan, but if it was Man Crush Monday, I'd probably have to pick George Camel. Sorry Dave, you probably understand. One of the largest piece of financial criticism that Dave Ramsey gets is about his $1,000 starter emergency fund. So many people are saying with the rates of inflation that have happened in the past few years, the emergency fund should be much higher than $1,000.
The starter emergency fund of $1,000, what he calls baby step number one, needs to be updated.
Here's the thing. Dave Ramsey knows that it's not enough money to get started. Listen to this clip.
$1,000 was not enough in 2003. It was never designed to be enough. It's enough to buy an alternator for a car or a tire, maybe one or two. It's enough to take your kid to the pediatrician if they're sick, but it's not enough to be a real emergency fund. It's enough to keep the little things from kicking your butt off the get out of debt wagon.
$1,000 was never enough money. To me, that's the point here. So by the time you start working on your debt snowball, which is another thing we're gonna talk about here shortly, you're gonna have some money set aside in case something happens. We all know that in the times where we need money the most, the problems start coming. It just happens. So how do I rate this one? When I say it's his worst advice, I'm gonna say no. I see where people are coming from now in 2024, but I'm gonna say, Dave, you're still okay on this one. Next up, let's talk about the debt snowball. The debt snowball is very, very popular. It's the system Dave uses to help people get out of debt. Basically what you do is you take all of your debts, you line them up smallest to largest in total. So let's say I have my car loan is the largest, maybe I have smaller student loans, and then maybe I have a smallest credit card. I'm gonna start paying off the credit card and aggressively working on those payments first. Once I get that paid off, I'm gonna take the minimum payments and all that extra money and apply it to the next largest and the next largest. You can imagine a snowball rolling down the hill. And as the snowball rolls down the hill, the momentum you gain is bigger and bigger, and it helps you pay off the debt. People say that this is not the best method, and mathematically it is in fact not the best method.
This is not a math issue. This is overspending, disorganized, not on a budget, time to grow up and not buy stuff I can't afford unless I have the cash problem.
There's a method called the avalanche method, and that's where you line your debts up by their interest rate. And rather than paying on your smallest debt first to gain momentum, you're going to start paying aggressively on your debt with the largest interest rate. What that's doing is it's saving you every single month on that high interest payment that you would be just accruing interest on if you were not paying any extra on it. So you pay off the largest interest rate debt, and then you move on to the next largest interest rate, to the next, to the next, to the next, until you attack your smallest interest rate debt and then get out of debt. Most people that have a mathematical background say that the snowball method is stupid because people are losing money every single month. And I get that. And I'm not here to totally defend Dave on this one, but I believe that people have psychological issues. And I say that in the nicest way possible. That being said, I think sometimes the avalanche method could work better than the snowball method. So I personally would say that a more personalized approach could work, especially if someone has a very, very insanely high interest rate. We know that there are crazy interest rates out there, and if you have one of those, it may be well worth it to start paying that down first so that you don't get absolutely demolished by some of those interest rates. So once again, I'm gonna say I see where Dave's coming from on this one, and so for some people it may be right, some people it may not be. The third piece of advice we have here is on investing. Dave has gotten a lot of fire about this one lately, and honestly, for good reason. Dave has historically and famously said that the S&P 500 gets an average of a 12% return over a span of 30 years, and that people should be able to withdraw 8% on their investment every single year in retirement. Now, here's the problem. In the financial industry, most people commonly say you should only pull out as much as 4% every year to protect your investment, since some years will not have as good of a financial return as others. But Dave went and he dug in, and he said this about people who agree with the 4% rule. A little bit wild.
The problem is when you go down these stupid nerd rabbit holes in these Reddit threads with these morons who live in their mother's basement with a calculator, and then you put that out into the dadgum community, and then people go, I don't have enough money. It's hopeless. I'll never be able to save enough to retire. $1 million should create for you an $80,000 income, boys and girls.
Yikes. I don't think that I can stand with Dave on this one. I don't think that 8% is really realistic, especially these days. I do believe that there are ways that you can make a 12% return, and in that case, an 8% withdrawal may be okay. You may be protected. But the reality is we know that the markets are not that way every single year. And if you're in retirement and one year the market's up 12%, but then the next year it's down 20%, you could find yourself in a position where you are severely taking from your retirement, and that you may end up having to go back to work and find other means of income. And so I would say in this case, I would say work on the safer side. If you can get away with only pulling out 4%, if you have the time ahead of you to invest more so that you can only pull out the 4% instead of needing that 8%, I would say do it. Honestly, I'm a little bit shocked by Dave's take on this one, only because he's always been so conservative with his numbers, and I would think that he wouldn't be so mad at people saying 4%. I understand that he doesn't want people to be scared about retirement, but the reality is most Americans are not going to retire, and they need to be a little bit scared. And so whether they invest as much as they can and pull out 4% versus 8%, it would just be better to play it on the safe side. I'm gonna have to say that I just do not agree with Dave Ramsey on this one. The next piece of financial advice that people hate is the financial advice about credit cards. Dave always talks about how much he despises credit cards.
It's the biggest scam in freaking history.
And how they are so terrible and that they take people's money, and I have to admit I agree with him on this one. Now here's the kicker. I do have credit cards. Now here's the thing. Dave Ramsey talks to an audience of people who primarily need to get out of debt. Dave is addressing a group of people in a very different situation than I am. I'm someone who has no debt. I have a very good track record of being financially sound and not doing stupid things with my money. And so I feel like I can have a credit card. I'm not being taken advantage of. Yes, I understand that I'm also not out there getting all the benefits of these points and miles and all the things that Dave says is just a scam. I also don't take advantage of those very often. I think that the biggest thing for me is that having a credit card allows me to participate in the system that Dave hates so much, but it makes it just a little bit easier to live. I've tried to rent a rental car with a debit card, and I didn't put enough forethought into it, and I wasn't able to rent the vehicle. When I went to apply for a mortgage on a house, it was so much easier to be able to run and check my credit. And knowing that I am good with my money and that I don't spend on credit cards, I feel like it's okay for me to have a credit card because I handle it wisely and responsibly. And I get it, Dave doesn't like playing the game, and ideally we wouldn't have to play a stupid debt game. But the reality of the world that we live in is that it's a lot easier to live if we do. And for people who maybe aren't flush with cash like Dave is, it's just a little bit easier to live with a credit card if you can handle it responsibly. I would say 99% of the time, people should cut up their credit cards if they are in debt at all. Whether that be student loans, whether it be car loans, whether it be credit card debt, you should cut up your credit cards and not be using them. They are dangerous. Get your starter emergency fund and you're gonna be okay. And if you can prove a track record of handling a credit card and just having it for specific benefits or perks, then I don't think it's that big of a deal. Overall, I'm gonna side with Dave on this one, even though I don't think that it's a one size fits all. And really, that's the problem with Dave's advice, and it's not something that I really blame him for. The thing is, financial advice is not one size fits all. There are so many good things that Dave teaches, and to be honest, I've been listening to Dave Ramsey since I was probably 5 years old. When he was playing on the AM radio, I would listen to him in the car. And I love a lot of what he has to say. I think a lot of what he has to say has contributed to my financial success. I just also believe that there are other ways to do things and that his plan may not fit everybody's needs. So here you have it. That's Dave Ramsey's worst financial advice. Let me know what you hate about his advice, and let me know what you've used in your life to become more financially stable that you've learned from Dave Ramsey or another team. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.